Welcome once again. Now let's take you through the newspapers this morning, share with you the major stories making headlines across Nigeria. Kicking off on the Daily Trust newspapers this morning. It says here, after signing peace accord, Diri, silver trade words over violence and arms stockpiling. Opposition running mates, Ododo signed peace accord in Kogi. Accord not mere formality, Abdulsalami tells candidates. Signing peace pact not enough, says the police. And of course, the average Nigerian is going to ask, aside signing the peace, act and all of that, what happens, to those who perpetrate violence during the elections? How many people get arrested? How many people, do we remember or, have on record that have been charged with, electoral violence or disrupting the electoral process and are currently facing jail time? And because it's not, a strange occurrence to hear that there were, people, that there was violence during the election. So how many people do we have on record? We spoke yesterday, I believe, of violence in Kogi State, I believe, at the SDP's campaign, where police officers, about 2 police officers were reportedly killed, along with other, parts of the campaign, when the SDP campaign was attacked, or SDP candidate rather was attacked. Do we have anybody currently arrested? Is there currently investigations ongoing to find out who committed those atrocities? Because the electoral violence is not just on election dates, in the build up to the elections also. Do we have anybody, who has been arrested so far? And so, yes, we would sign peace accords because we also do not expect that both candidates would come out guns blazing. So when we are signing peace accords, it's not because of the candidates themselves, it's because of the, elements that are used to perpetrate violence. As much as we would encourage candidates to not involve themselves in things like that, we also want that we have a police force and security agencies that are on their feet and will be able to ensure that these things do not happen, that people are arrested when they try to perpetrate violence, and those, of course, who bring out bigotry, also weaponize bigotry during the elections, are also arrested. Still on the Daily Trust this morning, 4 airlines affected as unions bar flights in and out of Imo. Well, despite outcry, Tinubu signs 2.17 trillion naira supplementary budget. And of course, it may be a good time to ask how much of a listening government that we currently have. I saw that one of the candidates for the elections put out a statement yesterday sharing his thoughts on the supplementary budget and how it doesn't reflect the current burning issues that Nigeria has at this time. Old banknotes remain legal tender, says the CBN. That also is one of the reasons that many people are angry with Godwin Emefiele, the former CBN governor, even if he currently has been granted bail and he probably was detained much longer than he should have, breaking, of course, the laws of Nigeria's Criminal Justice Act. But still, a lot of Nigerians are angry, with him because of the Naira redesign policy that failed. And I think at this point we can say that the Naira redesign policy failed and failed woefully. Maybe because it was never designed to succeed. Maybe because it was, never designed with, honest intentions. Nobody knows. But the fact is that it failed and failed woefully. And for months, while it was on, Nigerians suffered. Nigerians were queuing at the ATM to get Naira notes. Nigerians were queuing in the banking halls to get Naira notes. But the point is, Nigerians suffered, and I'm certain that lives were lost as a result of that complete disaster of a policy that was brought forward by former CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele. But will he be asked questions as a result of that, the failure of that policy? Maybe, maybe not. Not very likely. Will he be asked questions instead of, gun possession of some old Dane 1722 gun that he apparently had? Maybe that would be more interesting for the Nigerian government instead of questioning, his competence, with the Naira redesign policy. Also on the Daily Trust, documents how Bello Matawale squandered over R1 billion for abandoned hotel services center, says Zamfara government. And also, 30 days after abduction, 5 infants die as 12 villagers remain in kidnappers' den. War on Gaza, destruction of homes and infrastructure, a war crime, says a UN expert. And of course, I think there's more people now saying, or, once again, realizing how, almost useless or powerless the United Nations is as a body, aside, to give statements. These are the stories on the Daily Trust newspapers. Let's go to the Blueprint newspapers next.
On the front page of the Blueprint newspaper, the big story, Abdusalami committee to parties and supporters, Bayelsa Imo Kogi off-cycle polls, not do or die. He insists that democracy is better than dictatorship. Identity politics, violence dominating political landscape, according to CDD, on page 6. It's not a very busy paper here. Old new Naira notes remain legal tender, CBN declares. Court grants Emefiele 151 days, bail 151 days after arrest. In Anambra, 322 killed, buried in mass graves, others missing, according to Truth Commission. Who killed these 322 people? Why were they killed? Was an autopsy carried out on their bodies? Will investigations be conducted, or will this just be swept under the carpet? Will those who committed this gruesome murder be brought to book? These are the questions that need answers. Tinubu appoints 20 commissioners for NPC on page 5. NPA launches $1.1 billion sports rehabilitation plan for competitiveness. And we also have here oil manufacturing top 8.03 trillion naira bank loans for H1 of 2023. And only 20 of 85 directors passed permanent secretary promotion exams. This is, it reminds me of the time when in Kaduna State, the governor had said the teachers, many years ago, had made the teachers do tests, and a number of them failed woefully and were fired. And then there was some form of a protest, like, oh, you're taking food out of people's mouth. But the question is, why did you not pass the exam? Well, here we're seeing only 20 directors pass permanent secretary promotion exams. I'd like to find out what the line of questioning was. Was it general knowledge? Was it something that they off the top of their head should easily be able to write? And we have our final story. Malagi pledges federal government's committee to take off UNESCO Institute in Nigeria. Well, that's all that the Blueprint newspaper has this morning. Let's head over to our next paper.
Yeah, of course, interesting to see at the bottom of that Blueprint page, 322 killed and buried in mass graves, all is missing, says the Truth Commission. And that is in Anambra State. And I will repeatedly just say, talk about how much, we live in a society where this is a story, and this is not a country that is at war. This is not a country that is being, bombed or fighting, a war with another country. But we can read these type of stories and just move on with our lives like it's, every other Thursday. And that's, what I'm trying to point out, how much of a dysfunctional society that we live in, that it's not just in one sector of governance, is generally that we can read a story about. I mean, imagine reading something in Norway that says 322 people were buried in mass graves in Norway. It would be a complete, chaotic scene that day.
Very true.
Anyway, away from the Blueprint newspapers, let's see what we can find on the Punch newspapers this morning. It says the electronic collation illegal, says INEC. Police warn NLC. I'm not sure what that is about. Off-season polls. Electronic collation illegal, says INEC. Police warn NLC. Yes, there, of course, is a mix of different things going on, in the next couple of days. As much as there's elections going on Saturday, the 11th, there's also NLC's warning, of course, a threatening of a strike from the 14th of November. Do the NLC have genuine reasons to go on the strike? I believe that they do. Aside the fact that IMO workers had not been paid salaries, and that was the initial reason behind the strike. But there was also an attack on the NLC president, Joe Ajaero. Are these more reasons why they would go on strike? Yes, absolutely. And so these are some of the things that I believe would take place in Imo State in the next week, here in the southeastern part of Nigeria. There would be a lot of discussion surrounding these things, and would expect that there will be more and more and more of these things coming up in the news. Will the strike or will the elections go on smoothly on Saturday? Time will tell, and we hope so. Will the NLC be able to carry out its strike or its protest from the 14th? Well, we'll see, and we'll see how things turn out. INEC says IREV not for results collation. Labour leaders advised against intimidating voters. Uzodimma others absent at peace accord. Diri Silva clash. Imo workers and banks shun strike. Interesting. Obi faults Tinubu's 2.1 trillion naira supplementary budget. Old banknotes remain legal tender, says the CBN. UK police probe suicide of British-born Nigerian. And also, federal government stops electricity tariff hike, insists on subsidy. I'm going to share, from the Obi Faults Tinubu's 2.17 supplementary budget, what he said. From his tweets, he said, a supplementary budget is not a budget made for, or rather, a supplementary budget is a budget made for very important national welfare needs of the people, which were not captured originally in the main budget or do not have adequate funding. Admittedly, some items in the current budget may not have been taken into consideration or may not have taken into consideration the needs of a new administration. But it is expected that a supplementary budget this late in the financial year should reflect mostly urgent items of national welfare. Sadly, the most pressing national needs and emergencies have not featured in the supplementary budget that was just announced by the government. For example, the United Nations and World Food Programme have recently alerted that up to 6.5 million Nigerians will go hungry next year. It goes on and on. I won't have time to read all of it, but his point mostly is that the supplementary budget does not reflect on what Nigeria's biggest challenges, should be currently, and that is hunger, healthcare, education, and some of all those things. Why do we have the State House getting more of the budget than education is? I think there was a 5.5 billion naira for education, I believe. Yes, for the student loan.
Yes.
Why do we have things like, of course, car loans and rehabilitation of houses in the supplementary budget?
And the most important thing being that people are finding it difficult to, first of all, even feed.
Yeah.
So he's of the opinion that the president is very unaware of the dire crisis that we find ourselves in this country. Because if you were aware, this supplementary budget would reflect different priorities as to what it currently reflects.
Oh, well, I mean, you could say unaware, which is also an indictment, but I don't want to say unaware. I think, they just haven't been able to place their priorities, right. I feel like they've not been able to prioritize the things that are mostly important to Nigeria. Maybe for personal reasons or for selfish reasons, I can't say. But it is pretty glaring that Nigeria's inflation rate at this point needs, some,
urgent intervention.
It's pretty glaring the level of poverty and the level of help that, our economy needs and our education needs. And you wouldn't get that level of help from, simply dashing out, money. I would always speak against that. You would also not get that level of help and assistance from paying an extra 35,000 naira, to workers every month. That's what, about $20, $25? I don't know. And those are the points that are being made, that we need to redirect where our funds are going into. We need to, take money away from buying cars for the First Lady's office that it's not constitutionally recognized. Take away money from renovating, the Vice President's house and some other very, very weird things that were placed in the budget. The controversy surrounding the presidential yacht that has also, of course, come and gone.
Out, yes.
Everyone has, moved away from that. I mean, there was these claims that, the money has been redirected to the student loan. But, a couple of days later, one senator came out to say that the yacht had been delivered already and that they were simply somehow just looking for where to, pay for it from. So there's just a lot of, it's a mess. But the key point here is that the budget does not reflect the current reality of what Nigeria is dealing with and where Nigeria should be focused on.
Very true. No, as in, there's really nothing more to say to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, very interesting. Another story that I saw on the front page there that stood out for me was IMO workers and banks shun protest. Did that come as a surprise? They shun the strike. Of course, they will shun the strike. I don't think that NLC, like we've said several times on the show, has shown itself worthy or has shown itself maybe very dependable in areas of calling strike. Right now, whatever strike it calls seems more of personal vendetta as opposed to genuinely involving the interest of Nigerians.
I mean, yeah, it could be.